Hey, so I'm here in the back of the Alu-Cab Canopy Camper, and today's project is going to be to install a countertop in the passenger side of the camper. I got this bamboo countertop at IKEA. It's about 4 feet long and about 19 inches deep, and it's going to go here in this orientation. There'll be just enough room left over for my cooler to still reside over here while we're camping. So what I'm going to be doing is using the extrusion channel from the Canopy Camper. You can see I've already installed several brackets here. There's some more over here I'll use to bolt the countertop to, and this is nice because it'll be this hardware mounts really nice and flush with the top of the extrusion channel, so most of the weight is going to be resting on this extrusion channel. This bolt will be basically to hold it in, and then I'll have a leg further out on the floating side of the countertop I'll install at a later date. So what I'm using for this is actually hardware I had from it's 8020 Series 10 from their aluminum extrusion hardware, and these are just the 90-degree corners. So the only complication with using this hardware is that the size of the holes is a little bit different than the sort of intended bolts that Alu-Cab uses by default in this extrusion channel, which is these half-inch hex heads that slide really nicely in here and don't rotate. Unfortunately, these bolts are just a little bit too large for the holes in the 8020 hardware, so I just got some bolts that do fit in that hole, and the heads were a little bit too wide, so I just ground off the top and bottom in this orientation of the bolt head, and now it slides into this channel, and because of the ground off sides, it also doesn't rotate. So then you just take your 90-degree brackets, and you can use a Nylock washer to go right on there. So the next step is going to be to install this last bracket here, and then I'll do a time lapse of drilling the countertop and getting it installed. So I have the countertop installed now. It's with 7 bolts, and I took the template that came with the sink and traced that after making sure it lines up really nicely at the front edge. So now I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut out a hole for the sink. So I'm here with the finished countertop. I had just finished applying the polyurethane. I ended up going with 9 coats total. Between the coats, I sanded it first, and then I moved to steel wool. And on the final coat, I did just rubbing it with a brown paper bag and using a microfiber cloth before the last coat. And then at the end, after the last coat dried, I buffed it again. So you can see it turned out really nice and shiny, pretty good finish. There's a couple sanding marks, but other than that, it's pretty perfect. Since the last time you saw the countertop in this place, I did decide to go with a larger washer because I noticed the smaller washers dug in just a tiny bit when I test fit it. Lastly, one thing you'll need to do if you install counter flush like this is make a little cutout right here, because the hinge for the door comes down and latches right there, and you'll need a little cutout for that latch to fully engage. So that's it. I'm going to install the countertop now with the bolts, and then move on to installing the sink and faucet. I'm about to install the sink. I've taped off the square for the sink with some painter's tape to make it easier to clean up the excess silicone. And now I'm just going to put a bead of silicone clean the bottom of the sink already, and the countertop with denatured alcohol. Moderate amount of squeeze out, and I got some water jugs. I'm just going to sit inside while I get ready to install the drain. I've got the excess silicone from the sink squeezed out, and now I'm going to apply some silicone for the drain. And the drain has rubber spacer and washer that I'll screw onto the bottom. Okay, we're in the final stages of the water system build, so I just have to hook up the faucet we just installed to the water tank I'll be using. So basically I have some 1/2-inch tubing, flexible tubing, that'll run to the bottom of this blue tank here, and then into this side of a foot pump, and then out this side of the foot pump to the bottom of the sink, where there's a quick connect that came with the faucet that I have attached to a barbed connector that will accept the 1/2-inch tubing. All the tubing will be secured with these hose clamps, and that ought to do it for now. Pretty simple system. I'm not going to film me working on it because it's all underneath the countertop, but I'll check back in when it's finished and show it working, hopefully. Here we are with the finished water system. So there's a tube going into the blue container that runs to the foot pump and then up to the faucet. just using a bowl right now because the silicone's not yet cured in the sink. But there you have it. The water system is complete. Let me know if you have any questions.